Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for a discussion about the Cornerstone Partnership, a joint initiative between Children's Aid Society of Toronto and Yonge Street Mission.
Welcome, friends. Great to have you here joining us. And so, before we discuss the Cornerstone Partnership, I thought it was important to set the context and to quickly discuss the existing anti-Black racism that continues to persist in our country and in our city. So, on top of the radical changes to the way that we live and work due to COVID-19, in the past 6 weeks, the realities of anti-Black violence have been thrust in our faces and cannot be ignored. For many, the murder of George Floyd and the acts of violence that have followed have brought us to a new level of recognition, pain, exposure, awakening, and determination. As we reflect on these events, it's really important to remind ourselves that anti-Black racism is alive and well in Canada. Canada's history of systemic racism has been woven into policies and practices of federal to municipal governments, social services, and agencies like ours. The pattern of anti-Black violence has always been there, but too few have taken the time to notice. But now everyone has paid attention, and many are searching for what to do and how to respond. So, while the second pandemic of anti-Black racism has reverberated around the globe, we also know that, like many social service agencies, it's been deeply embedded in the practices of our agency, Children's Aid Society of Toronto. And at a time when 8.5 to 9% of the population self-identifies as Black, 40+% of the children and youth in the care of CAS of Toronto self-identify as Black. But this is not news to our agency, that we have had a history and a record of overrepresentation of Black children and youth in care. We've been on a journey over the past few years to eliminate disparity and disproportionality in our service delivery and outcomes. So, as we continue this journey, we're focused on addressing the why behind the systemic bias that has resulted in a disproportionate number of Black youth and families involved in our child welfare agency. The fundamental causes of a disproportionate number of Black families being referred, investigated, and serviced by CAS of Toronto includes deep-seated issues of poverty, compounded by systemic racism, and preconceived ideas about a parent's ability to care for their child. And we know through feedback and discussion that our Black clients experience over surveillance, assumptions of criminal activity, harsher enforcement of policies, and other negative impacts, assumptions, and stereotypes. And this creates a disproportionate number of Black children and youth in our care, eventually leading to potentially negative outcomes, such as family trauma, distress and disturbance that can persist from generation to generation, or a child in care experiencing compounding challenges such as issues with housing, education, employment, mental health, and the criminal justice system. But as an agency, we're working to identify our deep-seated biases, our discriminatory practices, and we're taking a proactive approach to eliminate disparity in our work. So in 2019, we introduced championing diversity, equity, and inclusion as one of our 3 strategic directions that will guide our work over a 3-year period. And this has led us to ask questions. How do we address disproportionality in our work? How do we become stronger allies to the Black community? And how do we create positive outcomes for Black families before, during, and after they've been involved with CAS of Toronto? And driven by these questions, we have introduced proactive and reactive programs and practices designed to strengthen the capacity of Black families to care for their children, including what we're speaking about today, the Cornerstone Partnership. So I'll now pass the mic and camera over to Marcia, who will introduce this innovative joint initiative.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today to hear about this unique partnership that has been formed over the past year between Yonge Street Mission and Children's Aid Society of Toronto. This partnership has allowed us to address systemic barriers, address the challenges that our families face every day. In working with street involved youth, I started my career at Yonge Street Mission at Evergreen Center for Street Youth, that I realized and noticed a pattern where youth, street involved youth, had challenges around education. They were isolated. Many of them were involved in the child welfare system, or they were Crown wards themselves and they're exiting. But a large amount of those youth were Black youth. I realized that whenever those youth started to progress well, go back to school, start their education, start to get work experience, and they felt hope was regained and they were getting that moral support, they were getting the clinical support. When I saw this type of wraparound care needed, majority of the time, those young people wanted to reconnect, reunite with their parents. Recognizing that some of those parents were still struggling with them and the youth were growing, we knew that some of them, it would not end up in the way that they thought, that it would be a positive ending. And that's when we realized that there was a lot of work to do. There's a lot of healing. There was a lot of strengthening of families. And we need to recognize that poverty also exasperates that. And our role at Yonge Street Mission and our partnership with Children's Aid Society is to build a safety net and an avenue of learning and growing and addressing these barriers and looking for the way to connect family. Youth and children, they're craving for relationship. And if I could appeal to your own family units, your own community, you yourself would recognize that where you are today is because you had a mother, a father, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, somebody within your close-knit community cheering you on. So could you imagine some of our parents not having that and knowing that their children are in care and they don't have the supports, the knowledge, the skills, the resources to be able to build that safety net for them? That's what's important. So supporting from the start. How do we do that? How does a young Black single parent learn to parent without healthy role models? What are the root causes that play in the lives of some of our families and how those can be addressed? How do we stop the cycle for Black families and restore the family unit? These are questions, probing questions. And I want you to ask yourself those questions, because at the end of the day, we need each other to shift situations. We have to work collectively. The realization that the family unit needs access to education, access to food services, access to housing supports, access to employment training. In order for us to break the cycle, intervention needs to be done sooner than later. We have to be preventative and we have to be proactive. And this is what this unique partnership is allowing. It's allowing the vulnerable families that are involved with CAS of Toronto to connect to YSM through a referral process. In order to change the narrative of our Black families, we have to create spaces and supports, wraparound supports around mental health and counseling services and all of those different types of supports that our families need. I want to welcome Greg Nunes with us. He's a father that I got to know, and he's just amazing, and we're just going to hear his story tonight. Welcome, Greg. I want to first acknowledge your bravery and your courage. So how did you become involved with the partnership between CAS of Toronto and Yonge Street Mission?
So basically, being a Crown Wardship myself, I became involved again with CAS when I understood that I was having my son. Throughout that time with CAS, having faced hardships and challenges, being a Black father myself, the CAS eventually referred me to the agency YSM, and that's how I became involved. Initially, my first thought was that they were just sending me somewhere to basically waste time, but that was not the case. When I got there, I got a worker, and I sat down with the worker, and we were able to have a meeting with CAS, and CAS was able to highlight some of the issues and things within myself that I needed to change in order to see a successful reunification with my son.
Can you share how your life is different for you through this partnership? What has really changed for you?
I'm now a father full time, and I have more responsibility as a father. Whereas before, when my son was still in CAS, I didn't have as much responsibility. Just basically keeping up my bills, groceries, and activities, stuff to do with my son, like going to the park, because with everything being limited because of the COVID-19, also reuniting with family that we haven't seen in the past as well.
You were connected to a man-to-man program with one of our staff. And as a Black father, how does man-to-man impact your life? And how has it helped you?
See, man-to-man's helped me in a lot of ways because it gave me the courage. It basically built up my confidence and the courage to deal with the issues that I faced with CAS, and also being as a young Black father. And they also helped me to just get the advice that I needed, and also built the sense of community that I was kind of lacking with my family. The counseling piece really helped out for me because I felt by going to man and talking about my issues, I was able to function better as a Black man and a father too. I didn't have a father myself. I was stuck in the system for quite some time, so just having my son with me, it feels really. I can't really explain the feeling, how great, how positive it really feels, because I thought at one point I was gonna lose my son, and through the partnership with CAS and YSM, they made it happen where my son came back. So it really feels good. It feels I feel proud of myself because I thought I was gonna lose him, and then I just kept at it, kept working hard. I kept believing that one day things were gonna change, and then the day came. So trust me, when they're in their bed sleeping and you're just watching them, that you get that heart warm felt feeling, like feels good, feels real.
What would you want to say to fathers, and especially to Black fathers that have children that are involved within the system?
Basically, if you know that the lifestyle you live warranted the CAS involvement, change it. Change it for your children's sake, because if you want to see your child survive and be successful and stuff, you have to be there, and you won't be able to witness that if they're adopted out. So the one thing I must say is that change the lifestyle if you can, and just try to have faith and believe that don't fight the system, work with them, because YSM, that's what they're there for. They're there to work with the CAS to help you get your child back. So just basically have faith and, work with the system, don't fight them, and change the lifestyle, because, if you can't do none of these things, then, you won't be able to get your child back. So just try your best, believe and have courage, because I got my son back, and this could be you too, So I know it's hard, but you can do it. Trust me. And thank you for having me. And also, I wanted to say thank you to the CAS for the challenges that also helped me to develop my character, like have a stronger character. So I wanted to say thank you to them as well, because I realize how important it is to be a parent, and the CAS kind of to realize that in a sense. So I just want to say thank you to them, and the YSM too, YSM as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful summer night and for taking time out of your day to hear what we have to say. As a Children's Aid Society, is that we are responsible for the safety of children. And that is a responsibility that we take very seriously. But the question I think that all Children's Aid Societies in the sector of child welfare needs to be asking ourselves is, how are we keeping kids safe? So we want to think well beyond safety and much more towards strengthening families and well-being and reaching maximum potential. Children's Aid Societies are in fact designed on this model of investigation, and that if you are worried about the safety of a child, you would call a Children's Aid Society, and that Children's Aid Society would then launch an investigation. So it's a very protection type of an approach to the work. And what we're noticing is that we want to change that narrative of protection to being proactive and looking at prevention. And the way that you practice prevention is by investing in families and building family systems and building family networks. Greg did a great job of talking about that in terms of the fact that he is now connected back to a system that he was never connected to before. We want to get away from this notion that we as the Children's Aid Society want to protect children from their families. And we actually want to build the notion that we want to help families protect their own children. And that is a huge shift for us. And the beauty of this partnership is that it allows us to do that. Fact is, particularly when a Black family sees a child welfare worker, they become worried. Not too dissimilar to the way often Black families see the police, because the history tells us that child welfare has intersected with the Black community in ways that have introduced issues of disparity and disproportionality. So we do not have the same outcomes when we work with the Black community. What's beautiful about this partnership is that we are able to enter into the lives of families with Yonge Street Mission, walking hand in hand and showing families that we are offering more than investigation, but we're actually investing in them, and that we want to help them with issues of poverty. We want to help them with issues of parenting. We want to help them navigate a very complicated system of mental health, so that it shows that we believe in the strength of people, and the capacity of families to raise their own children, and for children to stay within their families. So we have 100 years of data that tells us this notion of investigation and removal doesn't work. But what we do know that works is investing in families. The important thing is that we want to understand and support the whole family. And this is so critical, and this is another reason why the partnership is so important. Real life issues of poverty, of underemployment, of mental health, of addictions are real life problems. And people do not need a system to judge them in terms of how they are dealing with their problems. What people need is belief in them that they will do well. People need to know that the system has their back and believes in them and supports them. But if you want to build strong families, and if you want to build strong communities, you don't do that by separating families and separating communities. You do that by investing in families, and you do that by building family networks and building family capacity. And that's what this program is doing. It's investing in families by helping families get the resources that they need and the tools that they need to ensure that their children can stay at home. And I just want to take a quick second and thank Greg, because I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to come and tell your story and make yourself vulnerable and talk about the struggles that you've had. And so when I listen to Greg talk, I continually learn. But the learnings are actually quite, in fact, simple. Learnings are that everybody wants to be successful. The learnings are that people need assistance and tools, and people need other people to believe in them so that they can find the strength to move forward. And that's really what we want to do with this partnership, is to show families that we do believe in them, and to show families that we will invest in them, but we'll invest in them in a real way, through resources, through people, through programs, and by changing systems.
So as you've been hearing tonight, our whole purpose tonight is we want to build solutions for Black families. We want to see my community, our community, strengthened. The call tonight is for the Black community to have an opportunity to rise up. So we welcome anyone and everybody, but tonight we're really looking for the Black community to rise up to become mentor families. Greg is one of those families, parents that are waiting for a mentor family. So we have families waiting, but we have a lack of Black families that are going to show their success and their passion for parenting, for really, their skills, their passion, their talent, their love for community. We need our own community to respond. We do need mental health professionals that also represent our people. It's powerful that when we make a referral to a counselor, a clinician, or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that when a Black parent walks into the room, they're seeing a representation of themselves. We're making a call out to mentor families. We're making a call out to mental health professionals. And if you're not any of those, if you feel, no, I cannot be a mentor family, my life's busy, or I have 6 children of my own that I'm trying to mentor, that's okay. There's other ways to do it. There's a financial support. We need all the support. So I want to say thank you. This is an opportunity for you to learn, share, take action, and to be an ally, a true ally that's here for the long haul, not just a knee-jerk reaction, but to really say, I'm committed to helping us heal as a Black community, because we need each other. We have all been impacted by systemic racism. We have all been impacted by challenges of poverty. And so this is where we could collectively do something to change the narrative of our Black families.